Fox News Alert, we're going to get out of that commercial break because we have word that the Supreme Court has issued a ruling on the extent of presidential immunity from criminal prosecution for conduct alleged to involve official acts during the tenure of President Trump. This is the big one we've been waiting for.
It does find this. Under a constitutional structure of separated powers, the nature of presidential power entitles a former president to absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for actions within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. He is entitled to at least presumptive immunity from prosecution for all his official acts.
A few moments later.
Triggered? I'm triggered!
No, it cannot be.
Democrats, wake up! Wake up!
Make America great again.
What's going on, guys? So we got to talk about the liberals melting down because Teflon Don scored another W, okay? This man has been winning lately, so he still got some other things coming up, like he's got to deal with his conviction and obviously appealing that and seeing how all of that stuff goes. But in terms of presidential immunity, this is something that the Supreme Court has granted him in a 6-3 decision, okay? Of course, the conservative justices were the 6 and the 3 were the tyrannical left justices. And of course, the liberals are melting down because the court is stacked against their favor and they wish they just had all Trump deranged justices and they can't handle dealing with a more fair justice system. Take a look.
The absolute rule of a king or a queen.
I read that now the imperial presidency is now made concrete. It's not about who's in office. It's not about their temperament. It's not about their disposition. The imperial presidency is now concretely here. Now the imperial presidency is instantiated along with an imperial court given Chevron decision.
Citizen Trump, who has said he will abuse the powers of office for his own person as a campaign platform and saying to his voters, but you'll be fine because I will be your retribution. It's voters that look like Eddie and Katie, you, and I mean, for all of us, who he's really saying, but I'm not going to serve the whole country. I'm only going to serve my base. But this is the same extremist court. Just like we fought a revolutionary war, we also fought a civil war.
It is about an imperial court constructing an imperial presidency, and Joe Biden should be running on that.
Organizes a military coup to hold on to power, immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon, immune, 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 immune.
If you do this in order to hurt an American citizen you don't like, to hurt a political opponent, according to this court, it doesn't matter. You have just talked to the CIA, you have just talked to your attorney general, you have talked to the Secretary of Treasury. By doing so, you are engaging in an official act. This opens the door to abuses of power, the kinds of abuses of power that we had in the Cold War at a time of the imperial presidency.
Pushing this to the district court is a justice delayed, justice denied kind of scenario in which you could delay the adjudication of these issues so much so that justice is never seen.
Started crying when she realized that we won.
All of this talk about King Trump, imperialist Trump, the monarchy. That's what these idiots are saying. They're going totally to the extreme because they cannot use their brains. Like, they're looking at this case as though it's being treated individually just because of the Trump case. Well, why the heck do you think the case was brought? Of course, they're addressing this exact issue in front of them, which is Donald Trump and the weaponization of the justice system, the removal from the ballot, right? Like the bunch of cases against him all at once right before the election. Of course, that's what they're trying to address because they know that the political landscape is attacking a opponent. It's attacking a presidential candidate. Of course, that's how they're looking at it. They're not looking at it from a standpoint of, well, what if the president is some sort of crazy dictator? Because honestly, a lot of presidents are already like that. Freaking Obama literally drone striked the guy.
I would have detained and prosecuted al-Awlaki if we captured him before he carried out a plot. But we couldn't. And as president, I would have been derelict in my duty had I not authorized the strike that took him out. Of course, the targeting of any American raises constitutional issues that are not present in other strikes.
I think the problem with the dissent is that it doesn't show the same vigor in looking at the opposing view. President Obama ordered the killing of an American citizen by simply declaring him to be a terrorist without a trial. Clearly, Justice Sotomayor does not appear alarmed about that, and presumably would view that within a core function.
They used to do torture, right, under the Bush administration, and I think the Obama administration. Hillary Clinton had a private email server and destroyed the evidence and was caught. None of these people are in prison. So it's not like these people don't do things that they probably shouldn't do and get away with it if they're the executive branch, the president of the United States. They've always been granted some leeway, and to try to like just kind of remove that is the equivalent of working at a job, kind of breaking rules when appropriate as a person who's in charge. And then all of a sudden the manager doesn't like you anymore. And then suddenly you're late, you're 30 seconds late one day, and then they fire you. That's the equivalent of what this is. Now you made a mistake. I already didn't like you. You were on thin ice. Now you're fired. Get the hell out of here. That's basically what they're trying to do. Meanwhile, you've been breaking rules the whole time for the greater good or whatever the heck you wanted to do. I'm not even saying Trump even did anything wrong, but what I am saying is that lots of presidents have done plenty of wrong, and nobody had anything to say about that back then. But without further ado, I want to get into this video where crybaby Van Jones, okay, black man Van Jones, always acting soft on every single time I ever see him talk about anything. Dude always sounds and look like he's about to cry. He's over here arguing about whether or not this is like the end of democracy. The world is ending. Okay, he's acting like a little P word, like always. Let's get into it.
Well, it's a very concerning outcome.
Look, he's stuttering just like Joe Biden. Can't even hear him. Sound like he's crying over there.
Basically, the question is, Supreme Court, do you more care about the unlawful conduct of a sitting president or possibly the unfair prosecution of a former president? That's really what they had to balance.
Well, here's the thing. One of those things is going on right now. The unfair prosecution of a former president is happening right now, and literally everybody knows that that's happening. So why would you address a problem that doesn't even exist, be it the problem of a sitting president becoming dictator-like, when that problem has literally never even existed? The closest thing to it is crooked Joe Biden, and he's being protected by Congress, the DOJ, a bunch of three-letter agencies. What this really is they're afraid that they're getting their ass beat in this upcoming election. That's what it really comes down to. And they're looking for anything that they can to put Cadaver Joe in office and say, yes, we won fair and square, knowing good and dang well that they've been cheating, trying to rig this outcome of this election and commit election interference for years. That's what it's really about.
They're obviously more concerned about the latter. And so I think politically, it's bad. It makes the Supreme Court look very partisan. They're supposed to be wearing these kind of black and white umpire jerseys or whatever. They look like they're wearing red jerseys.
Here's the stupid thing about this that I'm like, guys, okay, the conservative justices did something that technically kind of favors Trump, but they didn't even offer him complete immunity. Again, he has immunity for official acts, not non-official acts. If they were totally partisan, they would have just granted him complete immunity. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Not to mention, again, the three more left-leaning justices didn't want to give him any immunity. If you ask me, those are the ones who are partisan. You can't just call the conservatives partisan and not call the Democrat, the left-leaning ones, partisan. Like, give me a freaking break.
MAGA hats. It's going to go down bad politically for the Supreme Court. It's also scary because what is Trump going to do? If Trump gets elected and there's this idea that he can get away with even more stuff.
I'm so afraid.
That's really, really scary for the public because he already ran over every norm that he could. So it seems like, I mean, I'm just looking at this politically, not legally, politically, it's almost like a license to thug in a way. Like, you can do whatever you want, and the Supreme Court is probably going to let you get away with it. That is very frightening.
A license to thug. Vivek, can you tell this man, like, where he needs to shove it?
Just shut the up. At a certain point, just shut the up. Van Jones at CNN.
I just had to get that in there.
And so I'm very, very concerned.
Scott Jennings, Justice Sotomayor, in her dissent, essentially makes that argument, saying the main takeaway of today's decision is that all of a president's official acts defined without regard to motive or intent are entitled to immunity that is at least presumptive and quite possibly absolute.
Yeah, look, I think there's some amount of overreaction here. I mean, after all, they did kick it back down to the lower court, so some decisions could be made about differentiating between official and private acts. But look, this court has stood up for the office of the presidency and the executive power of the presidency in a way that, you know, may be of some benefit to future presidents. I mean, we're looking at this through the lens of Donald Trump, but, you know, the President of the United States has a lot of power for a reason. And they do take a lot of official actions. And I think about a future where, you know, if it was open season on presidents for time immemorial, you know, what action would any president ever take out of fear of being dragged into a courtroom every time they did it? So I hear Van, and I think there's interesting arguments on both sides of this today. I've listened to some of arguments like what Van has made. But at the same time,
it's not worth listening to, because at the end of the day, presidents are going to do a lot of stuff that whatever they want to do. They're not going to go out and just start killing people with impunity. Obviously, they're going to be removed from office if they do that. But a lot of the time they do definitely bend the rules, stretch the rules, and sometimes even break the rules. Again, showed y'all a clip from Obama. Nobody seemed to have a problem with that. It literally killed a guy. Nobody seems to have any issue with that. He's the greatest president ever. But when it comes to Donald Trump, who has never done that same thing, he's like the worst guy in history. You guys got to be freaking kidding me.
The way it's structured, this thing is going to ping pong back and forth for 3 or 4 more years, maybe. It seems like they're doing Donald Trump a favor when they don't have to. The ruling does seem to be
Donald Trump literally can still possibly be convicted of these crimes. That's what kills me about these leftist meltdowns. He's not even off the hook, but they're just mad because he might get elected again. They don't want the punishment to come later. It's not about justice with these people. They want Trump to never take office again. That's the whole point behind the prosecutions, and all of these meltdowns just make it much more obvious, even for the people who don't even believe it's politically motivated. Like, why is everybody so mad when things just get pushed a little bit further down the line? He's not immune from all crime.
More concerned about unleashing the presidency than constraining the presidency. That's fine, except that there's a different balance here. Now you're concerned about a renegade president. Are you concerned about a renegade president prosecuting someone unfairly after the fact, or acting like a rogue or a thug in office? It's not clear what's the greater threat to the republic, and it doesn't seem like the majority really has taken as
neither one is okay.
The concern of half the country about renegade presidencies in the office. I think the Supreme Court is hurting itself.
We already got a renegade president. His name is Crooked Joe Biden.
There was, I believe, a way to come to a better outcome, a quicker outcome, an outcome that better balances the interests here. What I think people are going to take away from this: Donald Trump has a Supreme Court that will let him do whatever he wants to, and that is terrifying.
Anderson, if I may, I actually agree with Van that I think a majority of Americans would have preferred a resolution to all this, a debt clearing, before they had to make a decision on voting in November. I think he's right about that. However, on the renegade presidency point, look, the Constitution does give the United States Congress a way to rein in any president at any time they feel like it, and it's called impeachment. And he was impeached twice, and he was acquitted twice. But at the end of the day, this is the wisdom of the founders. They gave us the ultimate political tool to rein in any presidency at any time they felt like it. The other people who can rein in a president are the voters. And voters in November ultimately are going to look at all this and make decisions about whether they're comfortable with Donald Trump or Joe Biden, given the circumstances we know about today. So even if you're upset about the legal decision today, remember, We have political processes in place, and this is another reminder that if the Congress so chose, it could reclaim the power given to it by the Constitution to do a lot of things at any time it wants. It's not done that much lately, but it could if it felt like it.
Vin, I think that's... Go ahead, Vin. I just think that, I think you're right, Scott, as far as it goes, but we also know the system's a little bit broken on the congressional side. I think the founders really believed in something which we don't talk about much, which is called Republican virtues. Not Republican versus Democrat. That didn't even exist then. But that anyone who we would elevate would have the virtues to preserve the republic. That was, you look at the Federalist Papers, they didn't imagine that you would have people elevated that act the way that Donald Trump is acting and act the way a lot of people in public office act today. So this is a real test. I'm concerned. It's a real test. If you have someone in office who has no respect for the law, no respect for Republican virtues, no respect for the Constitution, no respect for norms, and then you have a Supreme Court that says, well, you know what? We've never before had to look at whether you could commit crimes. The Supreme Court says there's some crimes you can commit. That's scary, man. Like, that's not, I mean, you can't just hope
this
that
dude is such a freaking P word, man. It's hard to listen to this dude because, like, it's all these liberals talk about is fear of something that's never even occurred. Trump was in office before. What the hell are y'all talking about? Everything was fine when he was in office. Y'all just didn't like the fact that he sent mean tweets and was mean to reporters and shook Vladimir Putin's hand. That's really the only reasons why y'all hated him. He didn't do any of the stuff that they purported that how much of a dictator he was gonna be. It's like so annoying listening to this idiot.
If the president does anything at all that the United States Congress decides is corrupt, has corrupt intent, or however you just described it, they can take action immediately. They really can. And so, I go back to the ultimate fail-safe that the founders built into our Constitution. And I would think that in some of these extreme circumstances that people who are worried about this ruling keep laying out, ultimately the United States Congress can take control of the U.S. government and throw the president out of office any time they feel like it. So I guess I'm not as worried about the extremities here. And by the way, on Republican virtues,
by the way, Scott, have you
shattering,
noticed some of the folks who are in Congress? I mean, you're putting a lot of faith in the maybe you're looking at the Senate as the last bastion. But
listen, I hear you, and I understand what you're saying. No, my faith is in the people of the United States. They elect the Congress. They elect the United States Senate. Ultimately, if you don't have faith in what voters do and who they send, then what are we all talking about here? And you can say that it's broken, and you can argue that people that you don't like some of them there or whatever. At the end of the day, if we don't have faith in the voters and the people they send, then I'm not sure what we're fighting about today. So I'm going to take a glass half full approach to the people of the United States of America and the system that was set up by our founders.
If you're the president, you do have to be enabled to do something. You can't just sit there with your hands in your pocket like, well, I guess I made it, and just kick your feet up on the freaking desk because you're too afraid that some tyrannical leftists are going to start throwing lawsuits at you. You can't be afraid of stuff like that. You got to move out here powerfully and definitively. That doesn't mean dictator and all of this stuff, all of this freaking fear mongering, all that. These people are playing pretend because they want Donald Trump to lose the election so bad. They're so desperate, especially after that horrendous debate where Sleepy Joe is practically falling asleep at the wheel, can't answer basic questions, forgets what the hell he's about to say. That's all this really is about. I already know that most of the people watching this ain't fooled by this. Y'all already know what it is, that they just afraid of Teflon Don coming over and being King Trump. That's what it is. And for the record, when he gets in office, I don't care what the heck he does as it relates to a bunch of these woke idiots. Like, after all of the stuff they overlook with Joe Biden, I don't want to hear nothing. Nothing at all. Y'all looked over everything that this idiot Joe Biden has been doing with the weaponization of the justice system, in a lot of cases, supporting the weaponization of the justice system. And we shouldn't disrespect the courts and all of this stuff. When Trump was falsely convicted, oh, you're questioning the authenticity of the courts. But then the Supreme Court does something you don't like. These people are nuts. They respect the court that they want, which is radical leftist courts. But they disrespect the Supreme Court because they don't they're not some far leftist radicals who is this pro-abortion at any time, any month, whatever, pro-removing of all citizens' guns, removing all presidential immunity, unless it's Democrats, of course, because then if it was Democrats, then they would try to change the law to make sure that Democrats couldn't be prosecuted, because the Republicans are the bad guys trying to do bad stuff. You know how this goes. The hypocrisy of the left knows no bounds. These people are corrupt, and I'm glad Teflon Don has another W today. If you're happy about that too, you already know what to do. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I appreciate you watching the Black Anomaly Rising channel. I'm out.
In reading through this opinion, I can't see how this doesn't induce cardiac arrest with the special counsel.
We're going to lose the goddamn country.